Melissa definitely has our attention. Tropical storm in the Caribbean, but is expected to become a hurricane by this weekend. And then, as we look ahead into next week, perhaps our next major. So let's bring in Fox Weather hurricane specialist Bryan Norcross, because we got to get the analysis as we go throughout the afternoon. Bryan, what are you watching right now as we look at Melissa?
Well, the question is how the jet stream to the north is going to interact with this storm. The jet stream is moving farther south with the season. As the cold air moves farther south, the jet stream more or less the dividing line between the tropical air to the north and the cooler air to the south. So obviously, as we get closer to winter, things move farther south. So how is that going to interact with this tropical system in the Caribbean? So that's going to be our big question of the day, and that's how we end up with all these different forecast scenarios. Look at it right now, and you would look at that and say, wow, if you knew your colors here, you'd know that the whites and the purples mean very, very tall thunderstorms, mean very strong storms, but the center of the system is over here. So the whole thing is tilted over, and this kind of rotation that you can kind of make out in there, that's actually in the middle levels of the atmosphere. So you have at the surface over here to the west, and then the thing tilts over, and then farther up you have that other rotation. So in order for it to significantly intensify or intensify rapidly, those two things need to align. Why is it tilted? Because you have almost 30-mile-an-hour winds blowing on it here in the middle levels of the atmosphere, middle and upper levels, so that's tilting the thing over. They are forecast to let up after tomorrow, and that's why the National Hurricane Center has this increasing intensity in the forecast. When we look at the visible picture, which is more like a photograph from space, not just measuring the height of the clouds, there you can see where the Hurricane Center puts the center, and here are the thunderstorms over here, and they are very intense. So the ingredients are there if this upper level wind phenomenon lets up, and it has not been well forecast, by the way. It was supposed to have let up kind of by now, but here we are, thankfully, slowing this down. There's the way the model analyzes it. You see it's a little bit northwest. This is the European model here, and we're going to track that as we go here, just so you can see. On this side, look, you can see these clouds kind of rotating out here, but notice they're all kind of archy, and that's a sign that it's dry air. So it's dry air being pushed in and is holding this system back. All right, here's the forecast from the Hurricane Center, and we're going to do a funny kind of cone here because it's moving so slowly. The cone, the way we draw it, doesn't really, it's not conducive for this kind of thing, but we put a center line on there just so you can see what the forecast is for the movement of the storm. And you see just slowly kind of moving to the north here. So this is tomorrow morning, this is Friday morning, then maybe bending a little back to the west here on Saturday morning, and up to hurricane strength is the forecast at that point. But remember, it could be up in here and moving, however, it could be making a loop up in here and still be within the cone on Saturday. Now let's go on through the weekend into early next week. And here you see Sunday, forecast is for 105, 120 Category 3 on Monday morning. The idea is if the system gets here south of Jamaica or even farther west over in here, the water is extremely warm and extremely deep and warm. So even with a slow-moving system that's stirring up the Caribbean, it's just going to stir up more warm water, which means more fuel. So that's why the forecast here for the next 5 days getting up to Category 3 here in the vicinity or south of Jamaica. This could be very bad in Jamaica. So then we're going to look a little farther in time, and this is just the Google AI model, the DeepMind model, and look what it shows you, that there's a high consensus it's going to kind of stall or move slowly in this area as it drifts to the north in a couple of days. Then kind of all bets are off. Does it kind of quickly go up this way? That would happen probably over the weekend. Or does it drift over here as the European model has been showing and then turn up north over Cuba? When we add the European and the GFS model, European is red, the GFS is yellow. You can see all these possibilities. You see this range of tracks from over here, Haiti and the Dominican Republic, over there to central Cuba. all of that area, you have to say, would have a threat right now. The question is exactly how far does this thing go west before it turns to the north? Now, generally, we use the consensus model. That's what the Hurricane Center uses. So when we look at the consensus of all the regular models, these are not the AI models now. These are just the GFS and the European and a few more, the ones we've been using for a long time. You see it makes this S, kind of like the Hurricane Center's cone, and that's what they use. And then after early next week, it gets picked up and zooms on out over top of Haiti or near the eastern tip of Cuba. That's the typical consensus. Now, here's the Google forecast based on the average of all of those Google lines. And you see it's very similar. The idea is it drifts a little north, drifts a little west. You see right down the middle of the cone. And then that's the end of the cone. But now it takes off that way, where normally we would think, it goes that way with the cone, but not this time. It looks like it's going to get up and stall somewhere in there near or south of Jamaica. If it's really close to Jamaica, this could be really bad on the island there, but then eventually being pulled to the north. So high consensus on the general idea, but no consensus at all on the specifics. When we add all those models up and say, okay, what do we have high confidence in and what do we have lower confidence in? High confidence over the next few days, it doesn't move a lot, just kind of drifts to the north, to the southeast of Jamaica, southwest of Haiti, somewhere in this area. Then the question is, does it drift this way like the European model shows, and some of the other, every model gives that possibility, or does it then begin to turn to the north, and where is it going to turn to the north? High confidence, it's going to turn to the north, but when and where makes a difference between Monday and Thursday of next week on when that process begins. And that's all related to the jet stream. Here we see this dip in the jet stream over Florida right now. There is the system right there. National Hurricane Center has it as a tropical storm, of course. All right, so here we are today, watching the upper left, and you'll see the time. Let's go forward in time here. There we are tomorrow. There's that big dip down. Is it going to grab it? Consensus is no. This dip is not going to get it. It's going to have to wait for another dip. That's why it's so slowly moving there, nothing to grab it. And it drifts around, drifts around. You see the European model is a little different here than the Hurricane Center's forecast here, but they're the same idea. Notice the flow here is flat. Here we are up Monday, flat, so nothing to grab it, just kind of drifting around down there. You actually have a little bit of a high pressure bubble kind of pushing like this on it. Now let's go on into next week. Hurricane Center just sits there because that's as far as they forecast. And notice by Wednesday, the model has it up over eastern Cuba, and then watch it zoom on out of the picture next week. Once it gets grabbed by this big dip coming along next week, this one here, then that's it. It's out of here. But it's just going to take that time to do it. So sometime in that Monday to Thursday time frame, that's when that turn is going to happen, and no apparent threat to Florida or the U.S. The big threat is this rain. Look at the rain pile up here, and you can see some of the numbers offshore. I mean, it's incredible down in here, but for the southern part of the Dominican Republic and Haiti, you see we're up here in the oranges, up into the foot range there. The eastern end of Jamaica, look at this, up in the 2-foot range. And this this goes all the way up to the end of the month. So we're in this 2 foot, maybe even a little more in some spots, kind of rainfall forecast, but exactly where it's going to fall is still a big open question, Jane, because we don't know exactly the track. But southern coast of Haiti, Dominican Republic, Jamaica, eastern end of Cuba would seem to be the threat zone right now, with effects in Puerto Rico, but not the same kind of effects as in the islands farther west. Jane?
Yeah, something that we have to watch for. But Bryan, I think what's been interesting is that AI has gotten a lot of attention this season, and for good reason, as it's led the way with numerous forecast tracks. But in this case, this is really the first time that the Google AI is having to forecast and track something in the Caribbean basin, in the Caribbean Sea. And so what's your take on how much stock we should put in that?
Yeah, I think that the evidence is that this system works. You know, now that we have a actual identifiable system such that it still is not very vertically stacked and so forth, so it's all tilted and messy. But since we have now a center to track, the forecasts, notice they have a consistency about them. They're all eventually turning north. The issue is timing. And if you notice, the Google forecast, when you average up all of their lines, you get that one in the middle. It's very similar to what the Hurricane Center is saying and what the other models are saying. So based on what we've seen, this is, as you say, our first one with them in the Caribbean, it's a very, very credible forecast system.
It is. I mean, it's been remarkable to see how it's played out this season and giving us that forewarning. So we'll see just how strong that dip in the jet stream is as we look down the line, which one is going to grab it and take it along with it. Right. So Bryan Norcross, our Fox for the Hurricane specialist, thank you. We'll be checking back in with you at that 5 o'clock advisory, of course, too.